Since the time of George Carlin and his 7 words you can't say on TV,
shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits.
Comedy has served as the front lines in the war to defend against free speech or whatever, you know. Comedians were heralded as these warriors who were willing to push the boundaries and fight for our First Amendment rights. But times have changed. We live in a world where these kind of swear words are simply seen as quaint and would barely cause any kind of ruckus or make anyone think twice if you were to see them out in the wild. Violence, sex, and depravity are all more common than ever in our media, and the puritanical restrictions of the past seem like a relic of a bygone era. To put things in perspective, here's what shocked people in the 90s.
Finish him! Sub-Zero wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
And nowadays, this barely causes a commotion in YouTube comments. In the music world, the explicit lyrics label was almost like a badge of honor. It made the album cool and edgy, you know, especially with the younger generation. And let's not forget when people thought Pikachu was actually the Antichrist.
They say the Pokemon whole effort is to train children how to become the #1 Pokemon master in the world. You follow it through the New Age teaching, you find out that masters are those who take control of spirits in the dark realm.
Oh, and by the way, for my own self-interest and because I'm a grown adult, I'm not going to be censoring any of these naughty words in this video, so this video will probably get flagged. So do me a favor and leave a comment and drop a like. It really does help a lot in the algorithm. As modern and forward-thinking as we are today, you may have noticed a swing back into a more puritanical mindset for content online, surprisingly from the supposedly more woke and the liberal corners of the internet. I feel like this all started with the popularization of trigger warnings. Now, content warnings have been around in media for a long time, but only recently have people begun to police their own thoughts and ideas online. Now, I'm lucky enough to have never been a victim of serious physical or sexual violence that I didn't pay to have happen to me, so I can totally understand the point of view that seeing a certain word or thing portrayed in media without warning can in fact be triggering and quite upsetting. I can also understand that how even if you aren't a victim of these kind of things, you may simply just not want to see stuff like that, and I think that's totally fair as well. But the one thing that always confused me about trigger warnings was that I found them to be self-defeating in a way. If you are someone who will be upset simply by reading the word rape because it invokes negative emotions from you, then I would imagine reading the word in the warning or seeing this would also result in that same emotional response. I don't believe there's a way to effectively censor that word to avoid an emotional response from people without also completely removing any sort of context as well. With this being the case, I find trigger warnings to be more so in the service of the poster to signal that they aren't being an asshole rather than actually shielding people from the words. As a side note, I know I am using the word triggered a lot, which has kind of become a meme in recent years to signify that kind of whiny, overly sensitive liberal, but it does still have meaning to elicit a response from someone. And for those of you on the other side of the fence who hear this and go, "Oh, words can't hurt you, snowflake, get triggered," you know, being annoyed is still an emotion. Being angry is still an emotion. Where jokes about trans people might trigger liberals, their annoying think pieces on hate speech are, in fact, triggering you. At the end of the day, everyone is triggering everybody, alright? So let's just relax. We're human beings, we're going to have emotional responses to things. So unless you're like a Vulcan and you can operate purely on cold, hard logic, think twice about who is calling who triggered. The next evolution of trigger warnings is a very interesting phenomenon I've been seeing come about with the ubiquity of TikTok. There seems to be a universally agreed upon new set of euphemisms and innuendos designed to tackle uncomfortable topics, but instead of being in service of the emotional comfort of the viewer, this form of self-censorship exists to protect the content itself from being punished by the algorithm for using no-no words that advertisers find troublesome. On one hand, I can see why the executives at Coca-Cola might not want their ads plastered on a TikTok of a guy making jokes about rape. But on the other hand, can you imagine having to look the victim of sexual assault in the eyes and telling them to please refer to it as grape so that the shareholders don't get upset? Saying someone got SA'd or unalived, not out of any moral reason, but to instead sanitize your own opinions into being more advertiser friendly is simply madness to me. It gives me so much tonal whiplash to hear about such serious topics with such infantilized language. Here, I'll give you an example of how it sounds to me. On July 1st, 2023, 19-year-old Julia Smith was attending a fraternity party at her college. When she wasn't looking, an unknown assailant slipped a pill into her drink without her knowledge. He then led her back to her dorm, where he forced himself upon her, and Julia was subsequently goo-goo-gaga'd. Do you see how that sounds? It completely diminishes the gravity of the situation and borders on nonsense. But we're all supposed to sit here and talk like we are exclusively addressing children about graphic stories of sexual violence and suicide. I understand this is the internet and, kids are going to be on it, but when I was a kid, they used to show uncensored beheadings on YouTube, and I think I came out okay. It begs the question, what are comedians or people in general supposed to do? Like it or not, online promotion is vital to working comics making a name for themselves in this day and age, and a late night set isn't the same career-making move it was in the era of Johnny Carson. If a comedian wants to be discovered online, they are at the whims of the algorithm. Sure, you can take a moral stance and refuse to self-censor, but then you run the risk of being buried under all the comics willing to unalive their own freedom of speech. The other side effect is seeing comics and other performers Tik-Tok-ifying their speech in real life. I've started to see people refer to the audience as chat in real life, at first ironically, but it's starting to become more serious, just as people are saying unalived and SA'd and graped in real life. This has become less a matter of taste and more about subservience to an algorithm as the only way to ensure people are actually seeing the stuff you're making. And it begs the question, what happens when what the algorithm demands changes? We've gone from people bleeping out swear words and censoring captions to outright changing their speech patterns in real life just because they know they're being recorded. I'm not sure what the solution to this problem is, because the only way to bring attention to it is in direct conflict with the goals of the platform in which I wish to post them on. I don't expect YouTube or TikTok or Instagram to suddenly have artistic integrity. I guess the only thing we can do is ask people to speak freely and from the heart, not for likes and attention, but because it's what they genuinely want to say. What do you think? Should I unalive myself? Should I go get graped? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you next time.